Hi, everybody. This is Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the special Pesach program of the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Wonderful. And as I mentioned in my last podcast, we're going to be focusing on the Haggadah this year. And I'm just going to go through, share some insights, things that hopefully will be relevant and meaningful to you and whoever will be joining you for the Seder. And even if it's only 3 people, me, myself, and I, so you should all enjoy it well. Yeah? So last time we got up to Avadim Hayinu, and that was the answer to the 4 questions. And then the Gemara says, if God did not take us out of Egypt, then we and our children and our grandchildren would still be enslaved in Egypt. Okay, how does that work? So I'll give you a technical answer first. Originally, we were supposed to be in Egypt for 400 years. God shortened it to 210 years. How much is that? 190 years short. It says in Tehillim, the life of a person is 70 years. So 2 generations would be 140 years. At what age do we start counting Jews? From the age of 20. So if God did not take us out early, then we, another 50 years, our children, another 70 years, and our children's children, another 70 years, 190 years would all be slaves to Egypt. Okay, that's cute. That's what we call it. That's what my son Yaakov likes to call it, pshetel. Pshetel, yeah. But like I say, whenever you're doing the Haggadah, you're trying to find meaning in it. If Hashem did not take us out, then we and our children, our grandchildren, would be mishubadim to Paro. Not avadim, mishubadim. What's the difference? Meshubed means that I owe you. I'm meshubed to you. Because let's say Paro Abraham Lincoln would have come along and freed us. In the end, we would owe a debt of gratitude to that Paro for freeing us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not want us to be in debt to anyone. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Egypt himself, so that when we look at the Egyptians, at no point did they experience a change of heart. Even after we left, they came chasing after us to try to destroy us. It was only because HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself took us out of Egypt that we had the liberation. And you have to remember that sometimes, because sometimes we see people doing things and we think, oh, isn't that nice? But the truth of the matter is that at the end of the day, if you're honest about it, then you could see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In communist Russia, so they were trying to break the Jewish children, get them to abandon their faith. So the Russian teacher would say to the little Jewish children, pray to God to give you a candy. They all pray to God. Says, you didn't get a candy. Now, ask the Russian country, Mother Russia, Soviet Union to give you a candy. They say, Soviet Union, give us a candy. And he gives everybody a candy. So he turns to the children and says, you see, you prayed to God and your prayers weren't answered. And little Maishla said, of course they were. You gave me the candy because I prayed to God. You think you did it on your own, but it's not true. I prayed to God and he gave me the candy. And, you look at a situation and you think, where's it going to come from? Who's going to do it? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Harbei Shluchim L'Makom. Like Mordechai says to Esther, if you save the Jewish people, that's great. If not, the salvation will come from someplace else. Don't ever flatter yourself to think that if it's not you, it's not going to happen. It's not true. Kadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, not you. And if a Kadosh Baruch Hu wants something to come about, if you're Zaycha, you'll be the Shaliach. Somebody once asked with Moshe Shapiro, what should be our attitude when we do Kiruv Rechokim? And he said, try not to get in God's way. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring back all of the Jews that deserve. If you are lucky, you will be Zaycha to be one of the Shluchim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will allow it to come about through you. But don't flatter yourself. I worked in Kiruv for many years, and I used to hear people say, how many people did you make from? I said, me? Nobody. He said, really? I said, don't you understand? If I speak to somebody and they become from, and I take credit for that, then I have to take responsibility for all the people I talked to who didn't become from. And frankly, I can't deal with that much guilt. I don't make people from, and I don't make people not from. I'm a shaliach. I try to present HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah in the best possible way. Or as Noach Weinberg used to say, we have the best product, we just need, packaging and marketing. And that's it. I just try to present it in a way that people will hear it. And if they hear it and they decide to incorporate it in their lives, that's great. I'm a shliach. I'm just a shliach. I had an advisor, I always tell the story over. I had an advisor, Steve Nyman, and he was the perfect advisor. He spent time with the kids. He used to remember their birthdays and send them cards. He used to take kids out to ball games. I mean, you couldn't ask for better. And he would work with these kids, bring them to Shabbos after Shabbos, and then somebody else would go over to them and say, you want to go to yeshiva? And the kid will say yes. So I said to him, in my, I had such wonderful tact back then when I was younger. I said, does it bother you that you've never made anybody from? And he says, of course not. Because my job is to do Ratzon Hashem. I'm not responsible for the results. He said, Kadosh Baruch Hu knows that you're not that dedicated to the cause. And given the opportunity, you'll quit and go back into your father's flower business, you know what I mean, and make a good living. So he has to keep showing you results so you stay here. Otherwise, he knows that you're not going to stick it out. It's an amazing thing that people forget sometimes. Kadosh Baruch Hu runs the world, not me. And I have to go out and do the best that I can. Somebody once asked Rabbi Refson, is Nevei Yerushalayim a cult? And he said no. Because in a cult, the leader sits in his ashram and meditates, and he sends his little followers out to raise money for him. So I leave my followers in the ashram, and I run around and collect the money myself. But somebody asked me this when I was in NCSY, and I said, are you a cult? I said, I'm a cult. So I'm an educator. I teach people. I'm not responsible for the results. If a person makes a choice. I had a guy who went to Eretz. He learned for a year. He came back. He was wearing a hat. He was learning. Everybody said to him he was brainwashed. He said, I had a friend from my day school. He went off to college. He came back with a ponytail and an earring. Nobody said he was brainwashed. Well, that's okay. He's experimenting. So I'm not experimenting. I'm not entitled to try new things and new ideas. If Hashem didn't take us out, then we might think that it was Paro. We might think there was somebody else who was responsible for it. So-and-so made me from. No. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that you were one of the people that he wanted to bring back, and he just used this person as a shaliach. The more that you let HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, do his job, the better off you're going to be. Next line. Afilu kolono chachamim, kolono nevonim, kolono zakenim, kolono yodam es Torah. Mitzvah lenu yisavim Yetzias Mitzrayim. Even if we were all chachamim, nevonim, zakenim, and we knew the whole Torah. So, Chachamim, what's a Chacham? A Chacham is a person who knows a tremendous amount. Right? You accumulate a tremendous amount of information. Nevonim are people who understand, dava mitoch dava. I can figure out what to do with it. There used to be this website called Gemsem, and Rabbi Tendler would answer halachic questions, and I would answer hashkafic questions. So a girl sent in a question and sent it to Rabbi Tendler. It was a halachic question, but he felt it was really a hashkafic question. So he sent it to me, and he says, "This is a hashkafic question." So I said, "No problem. You tell me what the psak is, and then I'll explain that that's why it is." I heard this story. Again, I never verified it, but Rav Henach Leibowitz, he said, if I ever had to do a Beis-Din, my Beis-Din would be Rabbi Levine, Rabbi Friend, and Rabbi Kanarik, Zozan Gesund Stark, who's still, Baruch Hashem, with us. He says, why? He says, Rabbi Levine had unbelievable Bekias. Tremendous Bekias. He would bring every source that there was on this subject. And Rabbi Friend had tremendous amkus. He could tell you every possible pshat and every Meir Mokum that Rabbi Levine brought. And Rabbi Kanarik was an Adam Yosha. He'll tell you which one is correct. Yeah. So Chachamim know a lot. Nevonim are able to manipulate the information that they have in Mevin Dovid Tok Dovid. Kolana Zakenim. There are certain things that you learn from experience and from age. I remember one of my kids was having trouble with a teacher, and I went to remember Weinbach Zatzal to discuss it with him, and he said, "She's a young teacher. An older teacher wouldn't have done that." You pick up certain experience. I was a young teacher. Young teachers, when they make tests, they like to try to catch people, show how clever they are. You get an older teacher, they just want you to know the material. And all the questions are designed just to see whether or not you know, not to see whether or not you can see how clever I am. Age brings with it a certain patience. Age brings with it a certain perspective. And so there are certain things you can only gain by age. And if you gain that, you'll get that insight that will help you. Kolonim Chachamim, Kolonim Nevonim, Kolonim Zakenim, Kolonim Yodim Esatayra. Even if we knew the whole Torah, we knew everything, it would still be a mitzvah to tell the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim at night. Because this is not, the purpose of this is not to just to say a chiddush. It's experiential. The process of telling the story is what allows us to recreate the experience for ourselves. That's what we're supposed to try to do. Maisa, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Oz ben Azariah, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfin, Shoyu Mesubim of Bnei Brak, or Masafim B'Yetzias Mitzrayim Kol Oso Alayla. Achubo Talmideihem va'amru lahem, Rabbi Seinu Agiyas Man Kriyash Mashal Shabbos. A stellar cast of characters. And they were all doing the Seder together, and Chachamim, Nevonim, Yodim Esatayra, Rabbi Akiva, who not only darshaned every word in the Torah and every letter in the Torah, he even darshaned the crowns on top of all of the letters. There weren't too many chidushim that they were going to say. But they did it the whole night till the Talmidim came and said, it's time to daven. There were those who say they did that on purpose so the Talmidim would see that they were staying up all night and saying the Seder. Which means that the Seder is not about saying chidushim. Somebody told me they were at Rav Moshe Shapiro's Seder, and he aimed the whole thing at the children, telling them midrashim, telling them stories. Somebody said they were by Rav Hutna. It was the same thing. He spent the whole Seder talking to the children. The purpose of the Seder is not to say a chiddush. The purpose of the Seder is to understand the story. It says by Makas Arba, Asher Hisalalti b'Mitzrayim. Says Rashi, Sechakti boy, how I made fun of Egypt with the Makas. They said the Chavetz Chaim would think about the Makas, and on each one he would start to laugh. He built it up in a way that you had to laugh at what was taking place, at the absurdity. And that's why I remember hearing of Shad many years ago. Why specifically by Arabeh? Because the Barad came and destroyed everything except, certain grains that were still young and soft, and so they didn't get crushed because they weren't tall by the ice. Yeah, Philosena, which Rashi says could either mean that they were soft, I guess, so the hail bounced off of it, or Pilei Ployim, it was a miracle. Because even if the grain is soft, when the big piece of ice falls and bursts into flames, it's going to be bad. It's going to be a bad thing. So it was a miracle that it survived. And so Paro hardened his heart. And by the way, even though it's the last 5 makas, Rashi says he hardened his own heart. And he says, it's not so bad. We still have food. And Hashem said, sure. Otherwise, what will the Arba have to eat? You don't realize that I did this chesed for you so that you would have an opportunity. But that's okay. In any event, things will always work out the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it to go. So, this cast of characters. Rabbi Akiva was a ger. His forefathers were never in Egypt. Rabbi Shua was a Kohen. Rabbi Tarfon was a Kohen. Yeah. The story over here, some of them were Kahanim, some of them were Leviim. They weren't even in Egypt so much. They weren't enslaved. But it does make a difference because the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim is a story that is in the heart and soul of every Jew. And on the Seder night, we don't remember it, we recreate it. And that's why at the end it says, Chayiv kol adam liros es atzmo. Every person has to see himself as if he came out of Egypt. Yeah. And that becomes the challenge. The challenge is, can you see Yetzias Mitzrayim is relevant for you 3,300 years ago? I remember when 9/11 took place. I spoke about this in my 9/11 video. I remember when 9/11, so one of the magazines interviewed various leaders to get their reactions. And one was the Novominsker Rebbe, the head of the Agudah. And he said, the world will never be the same. This was September 11th. November 11th, give or take, I was speaking in a girls' school. And I said, what should I talk about? He says, just not 9/11. Everyone's tired of hearing about it. And I said, the world will never be the same for less than 2 months. And then it'll go back. And I'm focusing on an event to be able to remember it, but not to remember it, to make it experiential. That Yetzias Mitzrayim has to become a part of me and my life. Amar Bozem Azaya, Haredi Kiven Shivim Shana Velozachisi Tzatema Yetzias Mitzrayim Balelos Hachidash Ben Zayma Shinema Lamantizkos Yom Tzeitzcha Meretz Mitzrayim Kol Yemei Chayecha. He says, I never had a source that you should say Yetzias Mitzrayim at night. What's he referring to? The third parsha of Shema, the parsha of Tzitzis. And one of the main reasons we say that is because at the end we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. I took you out of Egypt. It says, okay, the first paragraph, the second paragraph, I know we're supposed to say morning and night because it says it. And I know I say it during the day because of Yetzias Mitzrayim. But what about at night? Do you have to say Yetzias Mitzrayim at night? And Ben Zayma darshaned kol yemei chayecha, all the days of your life, to include the nights. And the Chacham say no. Yeah. Kol yemei chayecha is to include even Yemos Mashiach. Ben Zoma did not say that. Because what's the difference? The difference is that when you sit down and you look at our lives, the Mesilas Yesharim says that I wrote Mesilas Yesharim to remind us of things that we forget by nature. Because the nature of this world is that we forget. And so by reading the Sefer, it'll remind you of the things that are important that you tend to forget. Yetzias Mitzrayim, we mention it when we wake up in the morning and when we go to sleep at night. We're supposed to remember. Yeah, there are a lot of mitzvos that are all there to remind us of Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's supposed to be something that's constant in our lives all the time. Because it's so central. And in fact, how does the Kadosh Baruch Hu reveal himself to the Jewish people? Not, I am the Lord your God who created the heavens and the earth. I'm the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt. It's something that's so fundamental to us. Kol yemei chayecha. Every single day, you have to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. It has to be a part of our lives. It has to be something that we live with. We were slaves, and Hashem took us out. And therefore, I don't want to be a slave. I don't want to suffer. I don't want to be locked up. I don't want to have any of these difficulties. Yeah. You have to remember, Kadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Egypt. You have a sense of appreciation. I remember seeing a bumper sticker years ago, decades ago. It said, God, what have you done for me lately? Yetzias Mitzrayim, 3,300 years ago. He saved you and he pulled you out. I may have told this story. It's a Pesach Kron story. This guy was in the hospital and he had a heart attack. So the doctors all rushed over and they were pumping on his chest. They were doing whatever they could. They couldn't save him. One by one, they all gave up, except this one from doctor. He kept working on the guy. And eventually he got a heartbeat and he saved his life. And later they came by the room to visit on him a few days later. And he says, Doctor, I guess you thought that I was going to say thank you. I'm not going to say thank you for saving my life. Thank you is what you say to somebody who passes you the soda at the table. Could you pass the soda? Thank you. He says, I sat down with my wife and with my children. And they all said, yeah, this doctor, he gave me back my husband. He gave us back our father. He gave us our grandfather. You don't say thank you for that. So we decided as a family that you're the guest of honor at every Christmas dinner, at every Easter dinner, at every christening, at every birthday party, at every wedding. If you can't make it, then we're going to take out a few minutes to publicly thank you for the fact that you kept me alive. Kadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Egypt, an entire nation, with signs and wonders. Also, some mofsim, with unbelievable things. B'yad chazakah, b'zroin netuya, with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. We remember it every single day. We live with Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's something that we have to incorporate. into our lives. And that's what Ben Zoma is telling us. The Malbim says the way the Haggadah is set up is, Avadim Ayinu tells us that's the story. And at that point, we're done. Avadim Ayinu, and Hashem took us out of Egypt. And then we say, but the more you tell the story, the greater it is. And here's a story with 5 great sages, and they kept telling the story the whole night. And then Rabbi Osman Azariah goes so far as to say, and every night and every day you have to remember it. And the Chachamim go even further and say, even when Mashiach comes, and the Chazal tell us that the miracles that are going to take place when Mashiach comes, compared to Yetzias Mitzrayim will look like a candle in front of the sun, and still we're going to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. Because Yetzias Mitzrayim is something that is so central to the life of every Jew. We can't forget it. And it comes up over and over again. Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim, Kivanu v'chata. Right? It's everywhere. It's in Shabbos, it's in Kiddush, it's in the Shalosh Regalim. Always have to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. Mantiskas Yom Tzeis Chameret Mitzrayim Kol Yimei Chayecha, every single day. Okay, more to say on the subject. Last year we spoke about the 4 sons, so we'll pick up after that in our next podcast. And that's the story. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can email me, leave messages. If you parenthetically, part of my official spiel is you say and see upcoming events, but obviously there are no upcoming events. And in fact, I just have to give a shout out because I've gotten this email from a couple of different people where I always give this, this line. I said, well, my friends who are speakers, so, their things were canceled. I said, I was wise enough to, the fact that my career collapsed already. So there were people who were worried about me. Don't worry. Be happy. Yeah. Kodesh Baruch Hu runs the world. So the person says, what do you mean? I said, well, the past, decade, I've been a speaker. And the last speaking engagement I got was in August, and the one before that was in January. So that doesn't really make you much of a speaker. And I don't know why. Some people suggested it was my podcast. Why should anybody bring you out to speak when they could just watch you for free on the internet? And I was like, I know how many people get chizuk from this. So it can't be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to punish me by doing something good. So it could be more people will join my online shiurim, and that'll be where things are going at this point. I really don't know, but I'm not worried. Every now and then people try to give me eights. Maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. I said, God knows my name. He knows where I live. He knows what I need. Yeah, I don't have to worry. So I'm not worried. Yeah. So that's why I, just saying that don't check the upcoming events because mostly it'll be me here sitting here in front of my computer. So, but in any event, so that's the story for this week. I shouldn't say this week because we're doing multiple ones now with Pesach coming. That's it for this episode. And we'll have more episodes talking about the Haggadah. And that's it for this episode. My name is Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.